Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. It's been a long time. I moved in France from Lyon, where I was originally based, and I relocated by the ocean, which is lovely, but a lot of time taken. So no videos came up these days, and I'm very happy to introduce you to this video, which is to me mind blowing. It's named Nolan Cross was designed in Rennes le Chateau. Wow. And what do we see here? We see Nolan Cross in some Google Earth picture somewhere on Earth. And this video might be a little bit long because I'm going to use Google Earth, which I'm not super acquainted with. You know, Michael is the master. I'm just the Padawan. So I'm going to go back and forth between the PowerPoint and Google Earth. But what I'm going to share with you today is something I think's never been discovered before, is a hard proof of a relationship between Oak Island and Rennes le Chateau. And if you're not convinced those two sites are linked, after this video, I think you're going to be on our side. So I showed all this to Michael yesterday, and we spent a lot of time reviewing it. And today I'm broadcasting the video for you guys. All this started, and Michael made a video about this gentleman named Simon Miles. Hello, Simon. I guess you're going to watch this video someday. And Simon has got a YouTube channel and wrote a book about Rennes le Chateau area and some correlation point and geometric figures. And he lived there for many, many years, I think 2 decades. Went to those villages. And if you like Michael and I's work, you're going to, I think, really fall in love with what he does and how he introduces things on his YouTube video. I'll leave the link on my channel. I can't thank him enough. Contacted him, replied by mail very quickly and very kindly. I asked for authorization to use some of the snapshots of his video, which he kindly agreed to. And this is, I think, Simon, you gave us a lot of very interesting information in your video. This is kind of a give back to you, opening the door now to Oak Island, which you know about. I talked to you about it, but you don't know our works in detail. And I guess, Simon, if you're listening to this, entering now after 2.5 years onto Michael and I's world of videos on YouTube, you might get a little bit overwhelmed with the mass and quantity, but really wish to thank you for sharing what you found, because your conclusion is actually the introduction for us and the beginning of a new journey. So why Rennes le Chateau? I've studied the story 15-20 years ago. I went there on site, kind of gave up because too much misinformation, you coming late, other people worked on it, hidden things, etc. When Oak Island came up 2-3 years ago, it was a fresher look. But we know, and if you don't know the story about Rennes le Chateau, you should just go on the web, and I'm not going to tell the story here. That's not the purpose. I'm going to start a series of video where I'm going to try to use what we learned about Oak Island and see if there's anything in Rennes le Chateau that echoes to what we found, and vice versa. Is there anything in Rennes le Chateau might give us hints on the island and the geometry and what is to be found. Both sides, primary suspects are Templars, though I personally think it was earlier than the Templar era. Both sides are about a treasure, are about things hidden, are about a religious treasure or a monetary treasure. They really echo one to each other. They resonate. So have a look at Simon Miles' YouTube channel, buy his book if you wish to, and I will point to the link of that video that we found so interesting with Michael. And I'm only going to summarize what he puts down in his video about what I'm going to use for my video here. So that's coming now. I'm going to explain you in a couple of steps, not whole his work, but I needed to reproduce what he was proposing in his video as a practical theory. I needed it, and I need to do it step by step on my Google Earth to be able to work further and demonstrate the relationship with Oak Island. So let's have a look. Just checking we're recording because it's going to be long. I think it's okay. So welcome to France and Europe. You know the country, and we're going to go south, very southwest. And as an introduction or preliminary statement, I'm just going to say the the Templar movement started near the Dijon. You see the Dijon area? That's in this region northeast of France that the movement started. And here we're talking at the opposite side, in southwest. The influence of Templars in this region was not at the beginning, it came later. So here we are in the southwest, Carcassonne, and the famous castle is right here. Okay, that's the place, stronghold. It's refreshing slowly. Okay, and the region we're gonna study is in the county named Aude, A-U-D-E, pronounced Aude in French, and in a region that's called the Razès. And if you read about Rennes le Chateau, it was one of the capital of the Visigoths in the time, which were gravitating between this region and Spain and Toledo, I guess in English. So here we're drilled down slowly, and we have that city named Rennes le Chateau. I mean, I guess if you follow this channel, you've heard about the story. That's the village, very small village, but at the time all this was fortified, and it was like a 25,000 people city. I think there's only 500 people living in there now. And that's the area where Béranger Saunière, that's his church, the Sainte Mary Madeleine church, that he refurbished and redecorated his way, built this villa here, built the whole Belvedere, and spent quite some millions building that layout and features on the premises. And so just to make sure when this is clear, that Rennes le Chateau site, that area is known for 8,000 years. Romans used to come and have bath in Rennes les Bains, bain meaning bath. Rennes les Bains is here, and you got thermal bath here. Roman terms, they're still written here, the Roman terms, the terms. So this is a very, very oddly, it's been populated for ages. This is a very known site, and Rennes le Chateau was again the state capital of the Visigoth here in the region. Okay, so what Simon did, living there, there's some interesting features, almost unreal, about peaks and passes, natural, from mountains, that align as meridians. And he's been studying this, having lived there. He took pictures of those alignments, and he recognized some alignments as meridians that we'll see later. One thing he also determined, and he said it took him quite some years, there are many alignments of things in the region between castles and between churches, but there's one in particular which started it all, which is this 45-degree, exactly 45-degree line that meets four very interesting points. And those 4 points, he details, are the church of Saint-Just-et-Bézu. The church is right here. And at the back of the church is the entrance, which, if you look at here in the longitude and latitude, especially the latitude, we're at 2.16.00, which makes an interesting meridian. And this line, 45 degrees, climbs up to a second place. Oh, I forgot to say that Bézu was a Templar castle, but it's located here at the very right-hand side. It's not in the village. It's in a fortified zone. You can guess, if I tilt the image, you can guess there's a lot of mountains and hills and rocks, and everything is bumpy. A lot of points of interest at the top of those mountains, right? So let's go and continue our journey. The journey after that first church continues to another place named La Val-Dieu. La Val-Dieu is here. La Val-Dieu is a very, very, very small village, very tiny, couple of houses. And again, if you look at the elevation in feet, it's at a higher point, 1570, than down in the valley when we go down to 1470. So this is a high point again. But we'll notice that the red line, 45 degree, does not hit anything in the village. And we'll explain later why. So that's 2 points. And then the next point is Rennes-les-Bains. Rennes-les-Bains is famous. It's kind of the twin sister to Rennes le Chateau. And Béranger Saunière was the priest of Rennes le Chateau, and somebody named Edmond Boudet was the priest of Rennes-les-Bains. And we will restudy that in detail, where it hits exactly, that line, 45 degrees, and hitting those churches and places. This is just the passage to Rennes-les-Bains. And the next point it's going to hit is the castle of Montferrand, which is here, which was here. You don't even see the ruins anymore, but it used to be here, located, and this is again the highest point, 1621 feet. It's at the bottom here, pieds feet, 1620 feet, and if you go there, you're at 1515. It's the highest point. And let's carry on, because the last, but certainly not the least, is the Château d'Arc, which was very interestingly laid out, because as you can see, it's made of 2 towers, the dungeon in the middle here, but there's also fortified houses in the southwest. And you can see the alignment is absolutely perfect with those 2 buildings. So Simon, I think if I understood well his thought process, had this line for some time in his bag of knowledge, and it's really, really interesting in the areas that are hitting that line. And I'm gonna just go back to the PowerPoint for a second, and we're gonna study each of those lines. So here on the bottom right, I took this 45-degree line, you can see, and I'm highlighting with a little red milestone the place I'm talking about at the moment. So this is Saint-Just-et-Bézieux, and as you can see, it's a village in the valley, surrounded by mountains. And this is a zoom here. The church is here, and the cemetery is here. And if you look at it from the street, that's what it looks like. It's very austere. It's not flashy or anything, and it's been rebuilt or renovated and etc. And it's away from the castle of Bézieux, which was Templar for only 30 or 40 years. Let's have a quick look here. They talk about the chateau here, and they explain that the Templar they settled in Bézieux only in 1285, which is very late when, you know, the movement and the society got dismantled in 1307. But very interestingly, King Philippe the Fair, Philippe le Bel, I had the translation from Google. So it's Philippe le Bel decided to dissolve the Order of the Knight and order the arrest of all Templars except those of Bézieux who were spared by the king. Interesting, huh? They had something special, it seems. At least the region. So that's my source, and the village and the church date from the 11th century. So if the church was, it's not a Templar stronghold, or even not a Templar church, it's a church, regular, good old Catholic church, dating from between the year 1000 and the year 1099. That's the 10th century. So Templars barely existed. I'm not sure the Templars created that church and put it there. And put it there is the most important part of the sentence, because the mountains were here, but the churches were put somewhere by somebody at that location. And we're going to see the purpose and how it works. So that's the first point, is Saint-Just-et-Bézieux. The second point is La Val-Dieu. So La Val-Dieu, very interesting. It started to be populated around 1200, so that comes a little bit later, but there was something before. They found the ongoing excavations lead us to the vaulted foundation of a 11th century chapel. So again, same era as the first one we just saw. I'll let you read, and you can pause the video, of course, if you're interested. I put in highlight in black what's interesting for us. The ruins of an old abbey at a place called La Val-Dieu has since been destroyed. So what we see here, that body, there was an abbey there at that location. And the red line, the 45-degree line, which you see right here, doesn't hit the village. It's southeast of the village, Well, if you read this, above the remains of a small room with arches, there probably was the chapel of Lavaldieu, which is located to the southeast of the house of Lavaldieu. So they say there's a fountain here, but they're saying southeast of that was a chapel. Maybe it was located exactly on that line here. So that's Lavaldieu, which is our second stop. And we can continue to the next one, which is Rennes-les-Bains. And Rennes-les-Bains is rich. So Rennes-les-Bains, this is a village. There's a river, and the village being built around the river like this, I guess. And that's where the Roman bath were. And if you zoom at where the line is crossing, this is the church of Rennes-les-Bains. And you can even see the cross. And it hits the cemetery. And I'm even gonna say it hits certain tombs of the cemetery. Rennes-les-Bains is peculiar because it was Henri Boudet, that's when he was quite young. He was the priest of Rennes-les-Bains, and he's the one who wrote La Vraie Langue Celtique. And La Vraie Langue Celtique, I've been talking about it when I was talking about the Rochefoucauld Grail, because the book is entirely written in the language of the bird form. It's a crazy book that nobody came to decode fully. I haven't started, not that I pretend I could, but it's a very peculiar book, and it's got 300 pages, and the pages don't go from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They go from 310, 309, 308, etc. Boudet had his sister and mother buried in one of the tombs of Rennes-les-Bains. I think so he could place the tomb the way he wanted, but himself, he asked to be buried not in Rennes-les-Bains, but in the city of Axat, the little village of Axat here, Axat. And his tomb is one of a kind because you got the book that is imprinted in the tomb, and his book is referring to a certain page. It's saying here in Greek 310, so it's 310, and in Roman X1, which is 11, so kind of referring page 11 out of 310, which is the number of pages in his book. Quite a singular character. And this is the cemetery and the church, and several tombs here really cause trouble. There's somebody named Paul Urbain who got buried twice. He's got 2 tombs, and he was buried at different dates, which caused trouble. We'll see that in the next slide. So Rennes-les-Bains is definitely a high place in the Rennes le Chateau story. And I understand that there was Rennes le Chateau story was revealed, the modern version, in around 1950, 1960s. And it revealed the work of those priests, Béranger Saunière and Henri Boudet, who acted in 1880, roughly, between 1880 and 1900. But the geometry is way older than this. I'm not very interested in re-exploring those priest discoveries. This has been misplaced, mishandled. There's been some crooks faking it. This is not reliable. What's reliable to my eyes is the geometry, is the churches that have been there for 1,000 years. They have been there. They haven't been moved around. And peaks and passes in mountains, those are more reliable points than the legend and the story that made up eventually that book from what's his name? I can't remember, but you know the one I'm talking about, which made a movie and he got so rich. Anyways, so that's Rennes-les-Bains, and Rennes-les-Bains, as I said, that's the church on the top left, and that's the tomb of the sister and mother of Henri Boudet, which he made an angle. And Mr. Paul Urbain de Fleury's got one tomb here, he's got one tomb there, and Janvier, which is another, probably never existed because his name Janvier means January in sound, but he's Jean Vier. He was a priest. I don't know if it's the real name, because January is a month that is interesting in the Rennes le Chateau story. So that's the outside of the church, and inside of the church, I think it's Paul Urbain Fleury who offered the Christ of Lièvre, which is a peculiar also painting. There's a piece of stone. There's another one here, and all this makes coded things, as we see here on this picture here. If you use the tree here. It's a willow, I think. I can't remember. No, it's not a willow, the translation, but it's a big old tree. And you align with some tomb and some element of the church. It aligns outside of the town to markers in the countryside. I was on a business travel last week, and I took that book with me, and I reread it, which is Le Trésor Maudit de Rennes le Chateau. It's one of the earliest books. Gérard de Sède is the one who made the story known again in modern times, and it was back in 1967. Sometimes, if you want to find reliable data, go back to the source and the original guys instead of following rabbit holes. Yeah. So very interesting. The church is dedicated to Saint Celsus and Nazaire. It's very old, and the church was mentioned in Catholic Church documents, I guess, already in 1162, which makes it a 12th century church. So the date of construction of the church might help us understanding who put them there, at what era, and what groups they belong to, maybe. That's why I'm referencing those dates. The next stop, the castle of Montferrand, which you would only find ruins now. What we know, and actually that's not accurate at another version, but basically that castle has got nothing to do with the Templars, and it's located at the top of a hill again. But I'm sorry, this is another castle. I thought I replaced it and I did save it, but there's something wrong that went there. But we're here on the journey. It doesn't really matter because there's nothing to see on the castle. It's not there anymore. The last thing is Château d'Arc, as you saw when I was Google Earthing it. That's the castle. The city of Arc and the region's been inhabited for at least 7,000 years. So maybe this is reusing a known site. It doesn't mean that whoever placed that castle here this way is the creator of that geometry we're going to find. They may have reused some place, some sacred place. You never know. What's interesting is who built it. Who built it is Gilles de Voisin. And Gilles de Voisin, if I remember what I read, is a descendant of a de Voisin who was on Philippe le Bel's side during the Cathar heretic war. So he was not pro-Cathar, he was against them. And when he settled in the region, his family, I think it's him, it's not his family, it's himself, created that castle here at that place. So it's kind of mixing. Is it purely Cathar, purely Templar, purely... It's still very blurry who, what, and when. So very interesting. And Gilles de, his son, remodeled and completed the construction. By remodel, does that mean anything that he created matching to this red light, 45-degree line? We don't know. But anyway, that's what Simon comes with as a model, because Simon was first using that 45-degree line he found, and then he said, hey, how about this is the diagonal of a square? Let's draw this square. So he framed it, he drew the square around. When you get the diagonal, you get the square. That's easy to create. And what he realized is that there was something with those meridians. The vertical line that goes at Château d'Arc down south, pure south, is located at 2 degrees 22 minutes 0 seconds. He finds that from Saint-Just, Saint-Bézu, when you do the vertical one, you find a meridian at 2.16.00, and those 00 are strange. And there is a meridian that goes through La Val-Dieu and probably the church southeast that is mentioned, but it is destroyed and we'll only find ruins, but we don't see them now, which is located at 2:18:00. I'll let you watch his video because then he plays with what's the distance represented by 2 minutes of an arc and 4 minutes of an arc. And that's very interesting, but I'm not going to extend on this. You can watch his video if you want to know more. What is to be understood is that those meridians exist. They cross very interesting points that have been references by castle churches or probably a church in La Val-Dieu, and that their value is round numbers with increments of 2 and 4. Very interesting what he found. I'm so happy to push it one step further with the Oak Island connection you're going to discover. So I wanted to stop at Google Earth here for the moment and do exactly what Simon proposes. So this is my 45-degree line. And from the Chateau d'Arc, which is on top, we're just going to create the box. So I'm going 90 degrees, full west from Arc. And I'm taking, as you can see, my gosh, I praise and I salute Michael's work, because I discover playing with Google Earth is the pain. It's not very user-friendly, and have I drawn those lines several times before getting the right model. So this is the 90 degree going full west, okay, full west. And then we have from Saint-Just-Saint-Bézu at the bottom, we're going to have the opposite, full east. And we're going to have those latitude. So this one, oops, that comes later, sorry. This one is, no, oh, the meridian, sorry, the meridians. So the first meridian on the left, this is the Val-Dieu meridian. So Simon positioned at 2 degrees 18 minutes 0 seconds. And that would make it cross here, which is maybe the southwest point, we're told. Southwest of the main body, which was here. Southwest, you may have a buried or ruined chapel here, potentially. Then you have the meridian that goes straight to Saint-Just-le-Bézu here. So let's highlight it. Saint-Just-le-Bézu full north. And what's interesting is, so this is the church, right? This is the church. And if you look at here on the bottom right corner of my screen, the latitude, we are at 2:16:00 29 2:16:00. Very interesting. Forgot about the decimal. We're there. And originally I took the canopy here on at the end. That's the entrance of the church, and the opposite. Sorry, not the entrance, but that's where the altar would be. But it's 2:16:01. So I think Simon is right. That's the place they used. So that makes 2 meridians, and now I just have to close the box. Close the square with the last meridian, which is at Arc here. And I found a slight difference with what Simon demonstrated. On his side, it's exactly 2 degrees 22 minutes 0 seconds. I find 2 degrees 22 minutes 0 seconds. I guess I was right. So let me correct this. Then I was wrong on the spelling. It's 00. And Simon, you're right, my friend. Precisely right. 00. Here it is. So very interesting features. On the one hand, you get that square for which the meridian use round numbers issued from the North Pole to the South Pole. Huh? These are lines that crosses the Earth vertically. And they use round numbers. And on top of that, the diagonal of that square is marked by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points on the same line that divides it. I mean, that's not by chance, right? That can't be really. So that was very, very interesting. So that's what he established. Whatever Simon established, I put in red, but I wanted to show you the demonstration, how we get to that. I add one more. One more is the Paris meridian. The Paris meridian found its place in many of the works around Rennes le Chateau as a reference point, a reference line. And it's issued from the Paris Observatory. That's one version. The other version, it's issued from Saint-Sulpice Church in Paris, which is 300 meters to the left. I use the observatory, the official one. And that meridian, very interestingly, hits our geometrical figure somewhere else. It's another meridian. I actually wonder if it's not a 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. I haven't established that. I don't think so. I'll check later. That would be amazing. Let's do it together. I'm wondering if this part on the left, it's bigger than this part on the right. So it doesn't cut it. Anyways, that's the geometric figure. And then Simon thought about something else. He said, if I got a square, I can find the middle of the square, the horizontal line that splits the square into equal parts, because I've got all coordinates. So when he does that, what you get is this. You get the line that breaks that square in the middle and goes full west 90 degrees or 270 degrees if you want. And where it becomes super interesting is that this line hits precisely this church here. But I mean precisely. So this church, which is called the Church of Campagne-sur-Aude, which is a round church, used to be a Templar church and a Templar place. Well, it was a church, and then the Templar acquired it and modified it to be a Templar church. It was a church before it was a Templar church. Let's have a quick look at this Campagne-sur-Aude church. Here it is. So you can recognize now the place, very peculiar in a round fashion. And on the top right hand side, you get the how it was set during the Templar era. And the church is very interestingly laid out, right? Very interesting. And this dates from the 9th century. Human settlement. The first mention is some of the human settlement in Campagne from the beginning of the 9th century. A charter of the Abbey dated 814 when there is mention of people living here. But the church dates in originally owned by Abbe Ortega, so probably again the 10th century. And it was given to the Templar in 1147. Very interesting place, isn't it? So let's carry on Google Earth. The last thing to do the last thing that Simon did once having this is to finish the geometric figure, including Campagne-sur-Aude. So we have those two lines now that build those points, that meet those points. And that's where it's quite interesting, is that those angles are not 90 degree. The angles are not 90 degree. They're 40 degree and 40 degree, making an 80 degree angle. If you use the box, which is a square, when you join Campagne-sur-Aude, which is exactly splitting the box into two, Campagne-sur-Aude connects to Saint-Just and Bézu and connects to the north part by 40 degrees angle. And that should ring a bell to anybody who knows this geometry of Oak Island very well, 40 degrees. Finally, we'll just close it the other way and we'll find an intersection point which is not exactly working. Something around this triangle, and I'll get back to those approximations and how we can make sense of them and kind of live with them. The more I'm looking at this, the more I'm wondering if it's not. I'm just going to visually check if it's. I need to check. But I think it's wrong. I need to check the distance between this point. Come on. This. Hello. This point and that point is 9,000 feet. And between this point and that point, and between Chateau d'Arc and the Meridian, this is 8,000 feet. So yeah, I knew something was wrong. Sorry, I needed to check live. Can't resist. All right, let's carry on. So this is basically, I won't say where Simon stops, but this is where Simon stops for us. And now we're going to take over. I got that geometric figure, and I got an intuition that there's something about crosses. At the entrance of Rennes le Chateau church, there is a devil, and on top of the devil, a big statue, and on top of it is 4 angels making the sign of the cross, like if you sign yourself. And it's written underneath, by this sign, you'll prevail, or you will conquer it. And we have a cross on Oak Island that is definitely a mean to conquer it too. At least we hope, or we guess. So there must be some cross involved in Rennes le Chateau, and many people propose many things, but it's tickling me. Something is itching me that Nolan's Cross must be involved at one point. So this is what I did. This is, if you remember some past episode of Michael and mine, especially when we were talking about the paintings and the Poussin paintings, which was already a first hint that Nolan's Cross was in the Poussin's painting. And the Poussin painting does relate to Rennes le Chateau. So you know that geometric figure, or you should now, right? You've got Nolan's Cross, that is here, and from Zina Halpern's map and from La Formule, we know La Hampe's point. The oak entrance is determined by Zina's map, and set point is so important to go to the west. Bear in mind, all blue lines exactly have the same distance. That's pretty much the core geometry of what's on Oak Island. And what I did is I couldn't resist but overlay. So remember, everything in red in the background is from Simon's work. If I can, yeah, I'm gonna move it around. So this is from Simon's work, everything in red. And when I overlay, it kind of works pretty good from cone D to the headstone, and it kind of lands on cone C and B. So I was like, could it be? But that's not enough to just have PowerPoint and lay them over. But since I drew that geometric figure, because I'm proposing Nolan Cross to be here, right? Right here. Let me pop it up and back. So in white is Nolan Cross, and in orange is the extension point. With cone D, I think should be matching that church. And cone B at the bottom should be matching the church of Saint-Just-le-Bézu. And the distance should match, but I needed to prove it. So this is how I'm going to prove you something quite... I still don't know what to think about it. So, Nolan's Cross. Nolan's Cross we know very well now. And we know by heart the dimensions, except there's two schools about those dimensions. There's the official measurement by GPS or whatever that you go on the site and you do measurements, which is in black here. And there is the Brian Farrow's point of view, which Michael and I do totally agree that even though you measure those distances, they are not the ones intended. I'm an engineer. If I conceptualize some equipment, a beam of 24.5 feet, that's what I want as an engineer. Now, the guy who's going to produce it, manufacture it, he's going to have to work with tolerance. He can't do the same number. It's a unreachable number, perfection. So there's going to be some tolerance. And the tolerance are directly linked with your quality of measurement instrument. If I want something that's 100 feet long, how can I prove it's going to be 100 feet long once I get it? Because I can measure, and then I can do corrections maybe if it's too long. So the measurement tool is essential in understanding the precision. And here on the island, it's very likely the architect wanted those red measures, which are geometric progression, by the way, as Mr. Farrow explained, and that on field, I mean, a boulder is already 3 feet or 4 feet wide. Where you take the measurement, where do you put it? At the center of gravity? How do you calculate the center of gravity out in the wide? You put it, so there must be approximation. So both versions are correct. And you're going to see that this is important for what I'm going to demonstrate to you. When we take real measures, and the question I'm asking is this cross I'm thinking I'm seeing on the Rennes le Chateau scenery, is it the same cross as Nolan Cross? To do that, since I only have few points at the moment, what I found is I know that distance, and I drew it on Google Earth, and I know that distance, and I drew it on Google Earth. So I can use both. Just going to show it to prove it to you. On Google Earth. Sorry, wrong screen. On Google Earth. I've got headstone to cone D, which is this distance. So that I know. I can measure here. And I established it by following Simon's instructions. And I've got the cone B to cone C distance. And again, I follow this instruction. And what I need to prove now is that the cross ratio is the same as on Oak Island. That is, if I divide that huge big arm by the smaller arm, I should find exactly the same number. meaning the crosses are the same, and one is just bigger than the other, but the proportion is here. So let's do that. If I take real measures, that is the black measures on Oak Island, the kind of officially agreed measures, the ratio of, if I can have my pen working, sorry, here. The ratio of that distance, C to B, to headstone to D, is what? Well, we know by the measures, and we can read here, it's 360 feet times 2 for the big arm, 720, and 429, it's written here, 429. So the ratio of the large arm to that section headstone cone D is worth 1.678. Whatever, there's no unit since you're divided feet by feet. Now, if I do it on the Rennes le Chateau scenery, and I can do it one for you to prove you it's correct numbers, if I take the measured numbers, 26, 8, and 16, blah, blah, I found 1.675 on the Rennes le Chateau by measuring. The difference, the percentage of error is 0.17%, 0.2%. Let's have a quick look. If I take the measurement from, it's the white line, right? I did it already. So what's the measurement of the white line? If I look at properties and I look at measures and I'm in feet, 26,898. What did I write? This is 26,898. I was on 26,898. That's what it is. But this is where it becomes, I think, so interesting. This is measures of things that are really, and this is measured with Google Earth in a very mountainous area and where the distances are in miles. And we found such a precision. This is the measures on the island, and it's maybe not what they intended originally to have. So what would be the architect's measure? What would be what the architect was thinking on when he designed that thing? According to Brian Sparrow, and I totally joined that move, what was meant to be was those red distances. And what the guys did on the island was what we found in black. So the architect's measure on Oak Island, if I take the red numbers now, I found 1.6666 on Oak Island. That's the ratio between the big arm and the headstone 2D. Look at those numbers. 26,898. I'm taking the bet that what they intended was 27,000. 16,054. I'm taking for a bet what they used for calculation and design was 16,000. To the point where when I divide 27,000 by 16,000, which I think is what the architects intended when they built that geometric figure, the ratio is now exactly the same with 0% difference. The intended ratio of Nolan Cross between the large arm and headstone 2D is exactly what was intended, same ratio on Rennes le Chateau. And that blows my mind. That's insane. That's I can't prove any better. This is a proof. It proves two things. It proves both are right in the dimension of Nolan Cross on Oak Island. There's the architect point of view, and there is the builder point of view at the end, with whatever we could measure or move those stones around, or how we measure them today. And it's the same on Rennes le Chateau. There's the intended geometric structure, but come on, those guys were working. They didn't have lasers. We're more than 1,000 years ago. So how did they do? We're thinking about that with Mike yesterday, probably using torch at night because they are high points. So you make several torches, pretty bright, across the scenery on a dark night without a moon, and then you start referencing your point. How do you do that? You don't have modern techniques. You don't have compass for magnetic north, so using stars for true north, which is what Simon demonstrated in his YouTube video. This is mind blasting to do it at this scale. You have a giant Nolan Cross. And I'd like to have the other point. But wait a second. If it's the same Nolan Cross, it's just a matter of scale. So let's scale this. Let's carry on. So scale. I found that the large arm on Oak Island is 720 feet. And the design on Rennes le Chateau of the same feature, the cross branch of the cross, is 27,000, which makes it a scale of 1 to 37.5, meaning 1 foot on Oak Island is 37.5 feet on Rennes le Chateau scenery. Now, bear in mind, Michael, when he works, is trying always on Oak Island to have a precision of less than 1 foot, or around 1 foot, which makes me I allow myself on Rennes le Chateau to have a precision of around 37 feet, because the scale is way bigger. It's 37 times bigger. So now I can work, because I know those distances on Oak Island. From headstone to cone A, I got 144 feet. I multiplied 144 feet by my newly found scale, and I found, and that blows my mind again, a round number. No commas, no decimal, beautiful, 5,400. So from headstone to cone A on Oak Island is 144, meaning headstone to cone A on Rennes le Chateau is 54, allowing me to locate and place cone A. Let's have a look. So my cone A now is here, and I've got my line that's here. And if I measure that line from headstone, let me reference headstone now. Headstone to cone A, what is that distance? Headstone to cone A, properties, measures, 5,401 feet. I was off 1 foot when I did it. And that's that point. Now, we've checked with Michael. Most of those points are meaningless. We don't find anything underneath. Okay, but the geometry is there nevertheless. So here I'm now with cone A. I've got cone B and C, and I've got cone D. Which one am I missing? C. To finish and complete the Nolan Cross, I need to find cone E, which is behind. I'm using the same technique. So cone E is here. I know from cone D to cone E, it's 288. Let's have a look here. This is the one, 288, they say. Multiply by my 30.7, I can find the distance. I'm doing with the 429 extension point. I know from headstone to extension point, which is a virtual point, I've got 432 feet multiplied, etc. Now I got my method, and I can place the full Nolan Cross as it is now here. And I'm missing this and that. Here we go. This is it. This is Nolan's Cross. I can remove some of temporary some of Simon's work. Here we go. And this is how Nolan's Cross is located in the scenery, with cone D being that Templar church, with cone here at the bottom, B being that church. It's just mind blasting, isn't it? What do you think? I think Nolan's Cross there, and I think it was there before it was on Oak Island, but that's personal thinking. But that's not it. There's more. So what's more is I've got one more point in my model. That's called La Hampe. So La Hampe is located, and I asked yesterday Michael, what's the distance between cone A and La Hampe? La Hampe is at 371 feet from cone A. La Hampe is here, and it seems it crosses those meridians and box frame. It seems, but again, PowerPoint's not good enough. But I know exactly where my cone A is now. I just placed it using the scale. Can I measure the distance between cone A and that point? Is it registering exactly on that intersection? That would be something, because then I'm not only registering Nolan's Cross, I'm registering Nolan's Cross plus La Hampe, and La Hampe is something determined by Zina's map and by La Formule. Wow. Which would give some strong credibility to those documents now. Wouldn't you agree? Let's carry on. So I've got 381 feet multiplied by the scale factor of 37.5. It gives me 13,912. Wait a second. I think the designer wanted it to be 14,000. It's mind blasting. Those numbers are so cool. So I think that's why I put in red. That's the architect number. That's the real number I'm gonna measure. And if I measure it, I'll show you. So it's that line that is called. I need to do the framing again, right? Yeah. So I'm just gonna repop up Simon's work and the meridians, including the meridian of Paris. And what I'm gonna do is Cône to La Rampe. That's that line, with La Rampe being at the bottom. Right? That's that line from Cône A to the intersection of that Lavalieu meridian and the southern part of the box. So on Oak Island, the distance is 381 feet. Multiplied by my 37.5 factor, I get 14,000 feet I should find here. What's the distance of that La Rampe line? Let's have a look. Property, measure, 13,816 instead of 14,000. It's pretty good since, still with the distances and the mountains. We're going to check the error there. The other thing that's interesting is the angle. The angle on Oak Island between the vertical line north-south, the meridian, and the white line is 15 degrees on Oak Island. Would it be 15 degrees here? Well, let's have a look. As you can see, first, the error on distance. I measure 13,816. That's an error of 0.6%, which is not a lot. And the angle I measure, when I did the measurement, the angle was 165.39. And you have to, of course, remove this from 180 degrees. Instead of 15 degrees, I find 14.61. Which again, there's the architect's point of view when he draws everything, when he conceptualizes and concepts that it's going to be a 15-degree angle and it's going to be 14,000 feet. And then there's the builder's work, who dealing with nature, with whatever measurement and precision of those instruments they have to place correctly those features, and they can make slight errors. But in a nutshell, if I just go back here, because I got one more thing for you. In a nutshell, we have Nolan Cross and La Rampe that is absolutely integrated in this model. And that extension point that's here is very interestingly placed because it is equidistant from the meridian of Paris on the right in pink and from the intersection in Rennes-les-Bains on the left. Let me show this to you. If we draw a circle, with the center is the extension point. It depends how you twist the image, but if you hit here, that intersection, you're flirting. What's my difference? Oh, here it is. Now it's aligned. You see, it's Google Earth playing fancy sometime with, when you got mountains, it doesn't work that good. Here it's perfectly connected, but if I zoom out, it starts to move a little bit. No, here it is. So the extension point is equidistant from the meridian of Paris and that intersection point here, which is mind-blasting. The meridian of Paris comes in play only for this at the moment. I haven't found any other reason. But what's so interesting is that the designer placed those Saint-Jules-le-Bézu Church, Château d'Arc, and Château d'Arc, castle, and Campagne-sur-Aude Templar Church, or the church before, at this place to produce this design. It is exactly, how can I say that? The church were constructed around 1100 at this position to mark this geometry and eventually reveal Nolan's Cross. So the probability that the people who design, at least not the full story of Rennes le Chateau, but let's just stick to what we know, to those church and chateau and places and that 45-degree diagonal line hitting all those points, those people were using the same geometry principle, revealing Nolan's Cross, as the people on Oak Island, and about the same period of time, probably. Moreover, on top of the Nolan Cross, they use here in this case that meridian, the Lavalieu meridian, probably hitting that church that's in ruin, to indicate La Hampe. And that kills me, because La Hampe is something only Mike and I believe in somehow. You too, of course, but forget about the show, forget about pseudo-historians, forget about... They don't believe in that existing. They don't believe in the underground. Again, that's like after the paintings, after the Rochefoucauld Grail, after the Zinaz map, after... Now we got another one, and it's like 10,000 kilometers away, maybe less, 6,000, at Rennes le Chateau, which is a central point of both stories, I think. I leave it there. Thank you very much. Expecting comments, and I'll carry on Rennes le Chateau discoveries based on the knowledge we have of Oak Island geometry. Thank you again, Simon Mile, for your preliminary work, because otherwise none of this would have been possible. And talk to you very soon. If you like the channel, subscribe. Bye bye, and talk to you soon. Take care.